Good morning and a warm welcome to our latest webinar in the This Can Happen series, designed to support you and your colleagues and families at this slightly challenging time. My name is Susie and I'm delighted to be facilitating this session for you today. So I'm just going to quickly run through how this webinar will work for those of you who might not have participated before. So our speaker, Harriet, will talk to you for about 50 minutes and you'll be able to follow along on your screen, and then we'll move on to any questions that you might have at the end. I know you've all, thanks very much. You sent in lots of questions in advance, but I'm sure some more will come in during the session as well. Okay, so don't worry if you miss anything today. I know we've all got lots of distractions at home because we will be sending you the slides and a recording of the session afterwards via email. So you can ask a question at any time during the session, and Harriet and I really do encourage you to do so. All you need to do is type it into the question box that you should see on the right-hand side of your screen. So all the questions are anonymous and they only come to my screen. So please do feel free to contribute in complete confidence. Harriet might ask you some questions to keep you on your toes as she goes along as well, and then I can read those out. Okay, I reckon that is enough from me. So now it gives me great pleasure to hand over to your guest speaker today, Harriet Beveridge.
Thank you so much, Susie. And just to reiterate, do keep those questions and thoughts coming in on the question panel. And I'll keep checking in with Susie and answer as we go and at the end. And also, if you haven't already, grab a pen and paper, because I am keen to, I'll be asking you stuff. I'm keen this is as much of a coaching session as it is me talking, that you can come away from this session with some thoughts, some actions, and so on. So who the heck am I? If you go on to the next slide, Susie. I'm coming at this topic from a number of angles. So I've been an executive coach for 20 years and I am fascinated by beliefs and confidence. I help a lot of leadership teams and individuals kind of step up and go for what they want to go through and go through different difficult transitions. I'm probably best known as co-author of a book called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, which is about the British rowing team and their quest for a gold medal. Now, I'm not remotely sporty, so I've used that as a metaphor. I kind of think I've no desire to ever get in a boat, but some of the strategies they used to step up in the pressure of an Olympic Games and to have the resilience and bounce back ability over 4 years of training and setbacks. There's some strategies I'll be sharing from that. I'm also a stand-up comic, and one of my I guess mental health challenges has always been around anxiety, and my way of dealing with stuff is to write a show about it and perform it in front of hundreds of people. So my last year's show was called Menopause, Prepare Yourself for Estrogen Armageddon, and I think at the moment, in a bizarre way, some of the stuff we're going through reminds me of going through the month-long Edinburgh Fringe, having the resilience and the persistence to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, you know, when you've died on your backside one night and then you might smash it the next, and so on, that kind of roller coaster. So I'll be drawing on some things from stand-up comedy. And also, although I'm not a qualified therapist, I have got qualifications in cognitive behavioural therapy and compassion focused therapy and so on. So my coaching work has kind of therapeutic roots. So I'll be drawing on all that stuff today in all the things that we talk about. So what are we going to cover today? You could, next slide please, Susie. So there were 5 things that we're going to go through. The first thing is around riding this roller coaster, this corona coaster of uncertainty. And the sense I'm getting from my coachees at the moment is adrenaline got us through the first few weeks, and now there's a sense of almost exhaustion of like, again, more? How do I get through the summer holidays with the kids? Or how do we get through the return to office? Or how do I keep on this hunt for a new job? And it's, you know, it just feels relentless. So we're looking at that. We'll be looking at bouncebackability, about how do we deal with knocks and setbacks and get ourselves back up again. We'll be looking at beliefs, tapping into confidence, that we can do this, that we can handle it. I'll also be looking at motivation, because I don't know about you, but there's a lot of stuff at the moment I know I should be doing. And sometimes it can be really hard to motivate yourself when your routine is completely out of the window. And there are all kinds of distractions and noise going on to keep focused. So we'll be looking at motivation. And I'm going to wrap it up with some simple habits just to summarize all this around resilience. And then we'll have some Q&A. And I'll also be sharing resources at the end, further reading and resources and so on. So agenda item number 1, riding this corona coaster of uncertainty. And we've already said questions, comments as we go. We will, after each section, I'll look at the questions, but also at the end. So number 1, riding the corona coaster of uncertainty. Now, there are an awful lot of models out there. The Kubler-Ross change curve is probably one of the most famous about how we as humans react to change, that kind of roller coaster. And often the feedback I get is that people expect it to be a linear process, that they go through stage number 1, stage number 2, stage number 3. So the metaphor that I like to use is a treasure map, an emotional treasure map. So if you go on to the next slide, Susie. And I don't know about you, but have you ever been at a village fete or a school fete where you've got a treasure map and you have to put a kind of pin in to see where sort of X marks the spot? And for me right now, we're on this kind of treasure map of emotions. And one day we could be in the mountains of anger, the next day we could be in the quicksand of fear, perhaps in the doldrums of boredom. And it can change from day to day which territory we are in. And that can be exhausting and massively unsettling. It's a bit like when you see those survival programs like Bear Grylls, what's it called, The Island, and or Survivor. And it's hard work. It's emotionally really hard work. So what is a girl to do? Tip number 1 is to figure out where is your X marks the spot. Where is it on this kind of territory? What's important to you? What's your goal? So Susie, if you just click on. Now, for some people, this might be a destination. So sometimes when I coach people, it's around, I want that job. I want that project to land. I want my kids to make that transition. But at the moment, I'm finding it's less around a particular destination and it's more of a compass bearing. It's more of a tuning into what's the kind of values or things that are important to us. So at the moment, I'm stuck in the spare room. The kids have managed to bag the kitchen and the nice big kitchen table. I have got a massive do not disturb sign outside this room, but it's like catnip to teenagers, so it's highly likely that at any point we could have someone in a dressing gown wandering in. On my, on the bed here in the spare room that I'm working in, there's a little post-it note, and it says, if you click on, Susie, it's got what is important to me. And basically for me, it's got, is the family safe and well? And that includes my dad, who was the one who got a letter from the government. He opened and read it. He's shielding. Is everyone else safe and well? As in, am I doing anything to stitch up the NHS and so on? Are we economically okay? Everything else is gravy. Everything else I just need to let go of right now. And having that focus does a couple of things. First of all, it makes the terrain meaningful. So if I do find myself in the mountains of anger or the quicksands of despair or whatever it is, it brings a meaningfulness to it, that I'm heading north. My compass bearings are telling me as long as the family is safe and well, everyone else is safe and well, economically, if I'm heading in that direction, then that's okay. It's a bit like, when they used to take the sheep to the summer pastures, it was worth going down the mountain path to get to that place, or it's worth, going in this direction to refuel the camels at the oasis, that kind of analogy. And the other joyous thing that this does is that it can tune out so much noise. So for example, for me at the moment, it might be tuning out the Year 7 parents WhatsApp chat of so delighted Timmy's learning the ukulele, #proud, or people on Facebook putting up, gosh, this has been such a fabulous opportunity to renovate the garden, hashtag lockdown living. And that kind of, or it can tune out the kind of professional noise. I was on I met up with the kids were doing some socially distanced football a couple of days ago, and some of the parents just chatting. It was fascinating. We're all in the same storm, but we are in very different boats. So there was one parent whose business has expanded by 500% because of the nature of work that they are involved in. There's the lady who's mid chemotherapy. There's, you know, the GP. There's the event manager, conference event manager, whose work has completely disappeared. And so I think professionally as well, it can tune out that kind of other people's noise and you know, how much we beat ourselves up. So some of the questions that came in before the webinar was around how do I deal with the volume of work that I've got? And I know some of you in that boat, there's so much. So maybe this question, you can have it specifically around what's important to me at work right now, for example. You know, should we be focusing on marketing or sales or this, or you know, the return to the office, or you know, and it's like, okay, if you were to whittle it down to the 1, the 2, the 3 things that are most important that you're compass bearing, what are they? So hopefully, as I'm doing this right now, you know, you're grabbing your pen and your paper, and if you were to put down the 1, the 2, the 3 things that are important to you, what would they be? And everything else is gravy. So going back to that treasure map slide that we were talking about, so you talked, if we're clear on where that X marks the spot is, so it gives a bit of meaning. There's another couple of things I want to highlight about this map of uncertainty. And the first thing is that our mind plays tricks on us. It makes us think that we are stuck somewhere permanently when we aren't. And it was interesting. My son was doing Spanish yesterday, and so he's in the kitchen. So you go down to make a cup of tea, and you can hear him doing some online Spanish thing. And he was reminding me that in Spanish there are 2 verbs to be. 2 verbs to be. They've got one that's a permanent to be, and if memory serves, I think if I say I am Harriet, then they use the permanent one, soy Harriet, I think. And there's one that's temporary. So for example, if you're tired, you'd say I am temporarily tired. Now, that's really irritating trying to get GCSE Spanish that you have to learn 2 verbs, but what a brilliant distinction. So I wonder right now, how often are we saying to ourselves, I am scared, versus I am skipping through a day of fearfulness, it will pass? Or how often do we say, oh, this is all really uncertain, it just is, versus I'm going through a day of ineptitude, or temporarily I'm not quite sure what to do. So there's something there about the temporary nature of each zone. And the other thing I wanted to draw out was that the feeling is not the territory. It's going to sound a bit zen. The feeling is not the territory. Now, Susie, if you go on to the next slide, every time we feel one of those emotions, what's really happening in our brains is that emotion is just a message. And now our brains we've still got the same wiring, the same physiology that our caveman ancestors had. Now, I did look for some clip art on cavemen, and it was really interesting. All I could find was very kind of white, sort of, you know, stale, pale male pictures of cavemen, so I put a picture of Belle instead, because that intrigued me. But in our family, and I do not know why, but we refer to having Trevor in our head, Trevor the caveman, because basically it's that bit of our brain, that ancient bit of our brain that takes over. Our thinking cap, our neocortex, can often fly off when we are feeling stressed. And all we've got access to is the ancient bits of our brain that go fight, run away, freeze, or flock together. That we don't have the access to the bit that goes, oh, let's brainstorm some options and put it out on a flip chart. You know, because back in caveman days, you needed to make a decision and run away. So it's just Trevor. If we're feeling fearful, it's just Trevor trying to keep us safe. Going, that might be a saber-toothed tiger in the bushes over there. When we're feeling angry, it's Trevor just trying to tell us that a rule's been broken, or that, you know, there's a threat to us in the tribe potentially. So counterintuitively, what I've been finding really useful is actually to thank Trevor and go, look, thanks for giving me the message. Thanks for letting me know. How kind of you. Because if we try and kind of just shut it up and press it down, then Trevor's going to keep coming back and going ding-a-ling-a-ling and try to keep getting our attention. You know, or another analogy would be that, you know, when any of you with toddlers, like, mom, 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 and it's like, you've got to go, yes, darling, you know, and acknowledge and move on. If you try and ignore it, it usually doesn't work. So in this territory of massive uncertainty, number one, what's important to you? You know, which direction are you traveling in? Even if we've never crossed this terrain before, or we're not sure of the exact location we want to get to, at least we know what our compass bearings, what's important to us. Number 2 is noticing that it's temporary, that these zones are temporary. And then number 3 is thanking Trevor for ringing the bell and getting our attention on things. So is there anything in terms of those? I'm just going to look at the questions that came. Any questions coming in before we move on to the next topic? Let's have a look at see what came in beforehand. Have I answered the ones that were there on that? Susie, have you got anything coming in, or do pop questions in now, folks?
Yeah, I've just had some nice sort of reflections of people, you know, agreeing with your points about WhatsApp groups, funnily enough.
Yes, they are toxic.
Made me laugh. And about someone saying they've got 8-year-old twins, and the noise of having them at home and the worry about their schooling is a massive distraction from the needs of work. And that, yeah, and then someone said, it's quite interesting that they did your exercise the other day as they were feeling overwhelmed by it all, and we figured out that whatever we do or don't do with the kids, they're now in a better place than they were at the beginning of lockdown because they've achieved so much in the last few months. I thought that was quite a nice little reflection.
It's really interesting, really interesting. No, that's fabulous. So I do think that we beat ourselves up so much about, because there's a million things we could be doing at any given point in time, and the current situation, because there are some people who are, you know, let's be honest, really capitalizing on it. You know, fair play to the people who have, you know, learned to play the piano. Well done, massively well done. But they've got a different journey. They're on a different treasure map from me right now. You know, we're comparing apples and pears, or on what's on my to-do list. You know, there are a gazillion things. So just really homing it down rather than that kind of scattergun. I want to go here and I want to go here and I want to go here. We can just, you know, the 2 to 3 things that are important makes a big difference. Right, should we crack on, and then we can always get some more questions at the end as well. So the next kind of, and these topics are all interrelated, all right? It's not like, right, we've done uncertainty, tick, moving on. Bouncebackability. Now this is a phrase, I love this phrase. It's what's the word, attributed to Ian Dowie. He was Crystal Palace football manager, who apparently you know, would always go, yeah, my team's got great bouncebackability, and it's slowly entering the formal kind of English language. So having the resilience to turn around setbacks. Now, Sir Steve Redgrave is allegedly on record to have said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it's allegedly to have said, there are no such things as unexpected setbacks. And the point he was trying to make was, you know, in his rowing career, he would think through, right, this race is coming up. What are all the things that could go wrong? What are all the things that could happen? How can I pack for that? So I get within that contained context, fair play. It was a good provocative challenge to go, how often are we just unprepared? You know, you think about it, like I used to commute to London all the time, which seems an exotic and crazy thing to do. But, you know, I pack my bag in the morning. Have I got my headphones? Have I got a snack? Have, you know, wallet, phone, keys, all that kind of good stuff. We all do it. So there is an element around useful planning, packing your rucksack for the next few months. Apologies, we live quite near a fire station, so if you're hearing, it's obviously it's flooding around us. I keep hearing the sirens. So there is an element about thinking about what I want to pack in my rucksack for sure. And one of the habits that I'm finding useful right now is having a daily or a weekly reflection on kind of what's working, what isn't. You know, what's served me well this week, habits that have served me well. What do I need to kind of pack my rucksack for in the next wee while? Do I need to dial up my meditation? Do I need to dial up exercise? Am I reaching out to enough people, etc.? So for sure, that's a good habit. But I do think in the current environment that we can get very sucked into kind of like what if and planning for every eventuality, and that rucksack could get massive. So what I'm going to focus on here is what happens when the setback hits. When, for example, I thought the kids were going to go back to school after half term. I had really geared myself up for that. And when Boris announced that, you know, I realised it was not going to happen. It was like, oh my God, you know, we've got until September. They're pinging off the walls. And one of my sons got ADHD, by the way, so literally physically pinging off the walls. So next slide. Imagine that a setback has knocked us off course. Now this I came across probably 20 years ago. This is as old as the hills, and I still love it. It's the most powerful metaphor for this stuff. If you look at that, I have deliberately squished some words together. If you were to unpack that into the words that are hidden in there, what would it say? Just notice that, and just notice what would it say. Okay, chances are you might have come up with option A would be opportunity is nowhere. And you'd be completely correct. Hidden in that word were those words. You might also have come up with option B, which is opportunity is now here. A few of you, statistically, there's always a couple, will have come up with opportunity, ice, snow here. And I'm sure that says something about your personality that we're not going to go into right now. But the point that I'm making here is that it's exactly the same bunch of letters, and it is our choice how we interpret those letters. And the challenge is, I think it sounds so glib and so trite to say, you know, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And for me, it's an and. It's an and. So when we've got a setback, there's a piece around them having the mindset of this is a lemon. Let's accept this is a lemon, and I wasn't asking for lemon. I really wanted a cherry instead. Okay, so we're not kind of bullshitting ourselves. There's a moment of kind of, you know, acceptance. And what's the lemonade? So it's in that spirit that I'm going to give you 4 questions that you can play around with. Now, this is going to work best if you've got something live that you can work on. So perhaps you've got a setback. This isn't a therapy session, by the way. All right, but if you've got a setback right now that it would be useful to have a noodle on, pick it. Or if you can think about a setback that you had, you know, a couple of weeks ago, or one that you're worried about encountering in the next few months. Okay, so here are the questions that you can apply to that setback. So it might be that we just try and contain it and minimize and mitigate the lemon we've been given, the setback that we've encountered. And that would be around, you know, how can I mitigate this? How can I contain this? So actually, I'm going to work through an example. I'll give you a real life example of something that happened to me a couple of weeks ago, which is in this world of Zoom, I'm finding that communications with colleagues and stakeholders and clients is different. And there was, with some of my stakeholders, there was a little bit of kind of sniping almost going on because people are having quite different experiences. You know, some people who are furloughed, some people who are not and are very busy, some people returning to the office. You know, there's a kind of weird dynamic. And whereas you'd normally kind of just casually go for a coffee with someone, you know, we can't do that right now. And there was one stakeholder of mine who did something that I found really offensive and demeaning to me in front of other people. I thought he'd really put me down. So option number 1 was, you know, minimize. I could have walked away. I could have, you know, chosen to kind of minimize the damage, you know, perhaps talk to people who'd, you know, picked up on that communication. That is an option that I had. I could also chat to my husband and he could go, for goodness sake, it's fine, get over it, you know, you're fine, just put it back in perspective. The next step that you could do, next question is, how can you neutralize it? As in, how can you handle it? How can you actually handle it and confront it and deal with it, look it in the eye and deal with it, as it were? You know, what conversation could you have? Could I have had directly with the person involved to just kind of speak my truth and, you know, make it clear that I wasn't happy? So for you, how can you at least neutralize it? Another strategy is around distraction. So right now, my bathroom is cleaner than it has ever been in my life. Oh, hashtag vinegar. We could do a webinar just on the joys of vinegar. And my husband's doing the decking out in our patio garden, our little city centre garden. Because there's something about, you know, sometimes you can get so enclosed. It's like, actually, if I've got a setback, is there something I can distract myself with? Yeah, if this bucket of my life isn't working, then is there another bucket that's going to energize me? And then obviously the golden ticket, the one we're really looking for, that would be amazing. Wouldn't it be amazing if actually we could use this setback, if we could use it and leverage it into something really cool to make the lemonade? And for me, what was really useful about this kind of communication cock up basically was, because we're all on Zoom and so on, I could send him an email. Whereas I think if I'd just had a casual coffee conversation, I could have kind of brushed it off. But I was almost quite formal. I unpicked, look, this is how this landed. And as a result of that, we were able to, you know, get a much better relationship as a result of that one incident. Because I was honest, I was open, he was honest, he was open, we had a good discussion about it. and our relationship is much, much stronger as a result of that, and some opportunities have come out of that in terms of working together that wouldn't have happened if that issue hadn't happened. So as I say, it's so easy to sound glib on this stuff, and please, you know, setbacks are setbacks. You know, my son had a horrible eye injury a couple of years ago, and if I could turn back time and stop that from happening, my goodness, I would. And is there some stuff that he's leveraged out of that? Yes, there is. He's learned how to paint. He's learned how to cook. He's learned the value of exercise and what it does for him. He's learned who are his fair weather friends and who, you know, who is good friends, etc., etc., etc. So it's the ands we're looking for here. So I hope those are useful. Those are 4 questions that I find massively useful in dealing with setbacks. So is there anything else on that? I think that's the end of that section. Is there anything else? Yes. Any questions that come up on that section before we dive into the next one? I'm just going to look at the notes that came in beforehand. I know there were a few on bouncing back. So pop your questions into Susie. Susie, let me know what we've got. I'm going to see if there's any particular ones.
I think during your little incident with the fire station, someone's just said that their house has just been struck by lightning, completely unexpected. I hope you're all right, whoever that is.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it all happens here. So someone said, what about handling multiple setbacks arriving all at once?
Yeah, and as I say, it sounds, I mean, you know, the danger is it sounds glib here, and I think that at the moment that's half the challenges, that we've got a gazillion of them. So without knowing the context, I guess my kind of questions to you would be, I wonder are there any of those? Which one of those, if you had to let go of them, would you? So then by that I mean, when my son had his injury, I had to condense my work to an hour or 2 a day because we had to be at the hospital. And it was, I just had to let go of, because I couldn't, you know, I couldn't deal with it. So there were people I pissed off, and there were deadlines I missed, and etc. And I just did. So I do wonder, you know, what are the setbacks we just have to go, I'm just gonna have to roll with that. I'm gonna have to write that loss off. I'm gonna have to, you know, there's a big piece as well about, and we'll talk more later on in the webinar, about support networks. And I fundamentally believe we so crucially underestimate the importance of, you know, of our support network. And when I coach people and teams, time and time again, we either rely on one person, you know, we look to our best mate or our husband or who, you know, our boss or whoever it is for like 90% of our support, and that's kind of dangerous, you know. Like, actually we need a web, we need like the expression, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, I think it takes a village to raise an adult. So I just wonder who is out there for you, whether that's professionally, personally, and it's going, you know, going beyond the obvious as well around support networks that are out there. And then there's another piece, again, we'll talk more about in this webinar, about self-care, that it's, you know, it's hard to deal with this stuff at the best of times. And if we are in a place of, you know, tiredness, not eating the right stuff, not getting enough exercise, not getting sunlight, etc., it is triply hard. And for me, you know, the anxiety manifested as not being able to sleep very well, and that was kind of, you know, got caught in this negative loop. So for me, people and exercise were the 2 game changers that helped me to kind of, looking back, I think I could have done more around nutrition as well, that helped. So that's a very long-winded answer to quite a simple question, but I hope there's some pointers there. And with all these questions, by the way, please do, I'll put my contact details at the end of this webinar, because I'm always conscious when you're on these kind of things. I know that's not what I meant. My question was this, so please do come back if we haven't answered them. Any more, Susie?
People love your Trevor analogy.
I love Trevor.
They tried it with their dog when he used to bark and say it was their old neighbour, which made me laugh. But also someone said on the Trevor stuff that they recommended a really good book which has a similar concept called The Chimp Paradox, Mind Management. Yes. Yeah,
he talks about a monkey that because you know, we've got layers of our brain, we've got the brain stem, we've got the mammalian brain, we've got the neocortex, and literally physiologically, if you do brain scans and so on, we, you know, this is almost like the human bit of the brain, as in we've got a bigger one of these than anyone else, just, you know, proportionally, but you strip it back and we've got the same brain as, you know, our monkey ancestors would have, you know, so it's this, you know, it's like we're accessing only a small percentage of our brain, and it's the emotional bit of brain. So I call him Trevor, but I apologies any Trevor out there. I have no idea why it was Trevor. Could be someone else that I want. Can it be Sharon? Of course it can be Sharon. I don't care. Should we go on? Is there any other?
Someone says celebrate 4 wins. That's good. Yeah, it's key. There you go. And I'm done.
Yes, amen to that. Right, on to beliefs. Now, this is a massive topic, and we could spend a week of webinars on this on its own right. So I wanted to talk about it, but oh my goodness, there's a whole shed load of stuff within this. So just to keep it really, really simple, beliefs, tapping into confidence and being able to step up and find new opportunities. So why are we looking at beliefs? Well, beliefs is one of the things that drive our actions. Yeah, one of my favorite ever jokes. Brace yourselves. Worst joke ever, but genius. Guy at Trafalgar Square clicking his fingers like so, and someone comes up to him and goes, why are you clicking your fingers? He says, oh, I'm keeping the elephants away. And the other guy goes, well, there aren't any elephants here. And the other guy goes, exactly, because I'm clicking my fingers. So I'm here all week. If we believe something, it will inform our action, and then the results we get will then kind of reinforce our beliefs. Who cares? Well, I'll give you some daft examples. If you go on to the next slide. Fill in the blanks. I've got some questions for you. Now, just whatever pops into your head. Okay, whatever pops into your head, something will pop into your head. Just interesting to see. So, point number 1, fill in the blank. Michael McIntyre is ... Something's pinged into your head. Next one. The British summer is. Something will have pinged into your head. Next one. The next 3 months are going to be ... And the last one. I am ... So like Michael McIntyre is funny, annoying, good, overpaid, brilliant, whatever. Who cares? The British summer is good, bad, but it starts. You can start to see how it informs our. Depending on my beliefs about the British summer, it's going to affect my expectations about whether it's going to be sunny or not. It's going to impact my beliefs about where it might be appropriate to, spend my time. The next 3 months are going to be great, difficult, uncertain. Again, it's going to start to inform our actions. And then I am, the global beliefs we have about ourselves. I am good at X, I am bad at Y, I'm terrible at interviews. They start to have an impact on our behavior. And the key thing here is, next slide, Susie, that they are just interpretations of the facts, but they feel like facts because we feel like conviction attached to them. So have you ever been sure that you've sent an email and someone hasn't got back to you and you think, well, the rude cow, they haven't got back to me. And then you realise that it was only ever in your drafts folder. Please tell that's not just me. We have this feeling of conviction about something that's completely untrue. We've lost our keys and, well, I know I looked in the cupboard. They're definitely not in the cupboard. And then they're there, sort of, in plain sight, hiding in the cupboard. So it's this feeling of conviction can trick us into feeling that things are facts when they're not. Now, if we were coaching, if we had a kind of coaching session, you'd want to unpick some of your unhelpful beliefs, your unhelpful interpretations. There's a whole bag of stuff we could do there, but I'm not going to cover that today. I wanted to go on to focusing on one core belief right now that is really helpful, and that is the belief that I can handle it. That belief that I can handle it. Because often, again, it's getting a bit zen here, but it's not the fear of the thing itself that freaks us out, it's the fear that we can't handle it. So to use a very, very personal example, I remember being terrified of, being in pain in childbirth, and it wasn't the pain that I was worried about, it was the worry that I wouldn't be able to handle it. That was the fear. Fear of redundancy. I was made redundant in 2008, and for about 3-4 months beforehand, I was worried about it happening. And again, in retrospect, I can see it wasn't the fear of the redundancy, it was the fear of, can I handle this? From an economic point of view, from a psychological point of view, will I be able to handle it? So if we can oomph this up, if we can oomph up our belief that we can handle it, it's like a kind of big key that unlocks unlocks a door for us, if that makes sense. So how the heck do we do that? Well, this is a strategy that I have blatantly stolen from the sporting world. This is something that athletes do a lot. And it is a technique around building what they would call an evidence or a belief wall. So you go on to the next slide, Susie. It's quite a trippy picture of some bricks there. I don't know about you, but they're kind of vibrating on my screen, which is slightly alarming. So yeah, the book I wrote with Ben Hunt Davis, who was in the Olympic rowing crew, they literally had a physical wall in their boat shed when they were training, where they would put up bits of evidence to kind of help inform their interpretation, their belief of like, we can handle this. You know, we can get gold. It's possible. It's doable. We can, you know, we can handle it. And I'll give you a couple of examples of things they had on their wall. The first, so if you pop onto the next slide, Susie, they had a picture. So that picture there is statistically, if you want to be a good rower, you should be tall. You know, because it's all about, you know, powering off your legs, power of your backs, sort of length of the stroke, you should be tall. But if you look at the fellas in the middle, the ones with the gold medals around their neck there, they are smaller than the others, are they not? And you know, if you, in terms of their size, they are tiny in rowing terms, so they shouldn't have won gold, but they did. So they had a picture of this South African pair with the gold medals around their neck on the wall in their boat shed to say, well, look, if they can do it, why can't we? They won gold because they were technically brilliant and they were great as a team, even though they weren't physically the strongest. So right now, when we're thinking about whether it's how the heck am I going to get through the summer holidays with the kids, you know, when I, you know, my patience levels are low. Well, what is it? What's, you know, what's your equivalent of the kind of technique and the teamwork that these guys had that makes up for the height, if that makes sense? Or at work, you know, I'm furloughed, everyone else isn't furloughed and they're busy, you know, reconnecting with the boss and all the rest of it. Okay, well, what can I use? What's the thing I can use to get over the shortness that I've got? The other thing they've got here is they have loads of statistics around their technique. So that is shows their curve of, you know, when they took a stroke, where the power in the stroke comes out. Now, it should be a certain shape, and that shape is nowhere near where it should be, but you can see it's changing. So from September through to November, the shape is changing. So they kind of went, look, our current habits, celebrating the small successes, celebrating the gains, you know, we're not there yet, but my goodness, we're on the right track. So I'll give you my evidence wall right now. How are we doing for time? I'm going to skittle through some of these. So these all mean something to me. All right, some of them are historical. That's me hanging off a climbing frame with a broken foot. Note to the wise, do not jump off a garage roof in flip-flops, because that's what happens. So there I am with a broken foot. Did it on the first week of the summer holidays, and that for me is a real reference of, as a kid, you know, I got through a summer holiday with a broken foot, so I can, you know, we can do this summer holiday. Again, this is all deeply personal. You might be looking at this thing and going, oh, for God's sake, get over yourself, love. I don't care. This is a wall. This is a wall that helps me. Right? This is my version of I can handle it. The picture of of what looks like Hogwarts there. That's my secondary school. Not going to lie, eyes from the ghetto, as you can see. I basically went to Hogwarts. That was, I remember 10 years old, absolutely terrified going from junior school, from a nice small normal junior school to that place, and think, and again, I got through that. I could handle that, so I can handle 2020. Sometimes it's around role models. So that picture there, that's actually a clip art picture, but she's to represent a couple of my relatives who are doing, for me, the bravest things right now. You know, to go out on your Zimmer frame and go to Waitrose right now, or you know, whatever it is an act of huge bravery. And also the habit stuff. You know, we're doing daily exercise, so the yoga thing down there, and whether it's just walking around the block or something, again, it's a useful habit. I'm going to celebrate small victories, small gains. You know, that's helping me to handle it. So I really encourage you to think, even having a physical wall, and I know some people are doing this as a family, to put together all the kind of successes and the reasons why, you know, we're going to be okay, we can handle it, you know, and build that belief, that confidence that we can handle it. So, any questions on that as a technique before we move on to the next section, which is all around motivation?
I've got no questions about that section, Harriet.
Cool. I'm going to crack straight on then. Hopefully you've got the start. And by the way, you don't have to have a physical wall. Another thing I should have mentioned is a lot of my clients have it on their phones. So you can imagine if you had your lock screen or whatever, that's a bit of yarn bombing if you're wondering what that is. Yarn bombing on a bollard. Got to make you smile. But you could have that as something that just, you know, as you're opening up your phone, gets you into that state of mind. So on to the next one. Motivation. How do you keep going when you're weighed down with distractions and doubt? So, you know, if we've done all the stuff we talked about so far, you've got the confidence, you know, you're clear on where you want to go, you've got your X marks the spots on the treasure map, you know that Trevor's just trying to be helpful, and there's some stuff you want to do, but it's just really hard to get motivated to do it. So for me right now, I was taking note of some of my clients. They're going like, we really want to reach out to our employees, for example. That was one of the things that, you know, we should reach out more. And, you know, oh my goodness, it's come to the end of another day and I've been stuck on email and I haven't reached out to my staff. That's ridiculous. How do I kind of make that a habit? Or for me, it's around exercise. It's very easy to sit up here in my attic room like a praying mantis all day and not go and do the exercise that I actually enjoy, but it just, you know, it's just hard to get going. So there's loads of techniques here, loads and loads, but there are 3 that I wanted to focus on particularly, that I'm finding getting most traction amongst my clients and myself right now. And they are, go on to the next slide. So the first one, that picture of the alarm clock, is around the 10-minute rule. And there was some research done in Sydney University a few years back, and they looked at people who had decided, I'm going to learn a language, or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to get fit. And they had these great ideas, and they tracked who actually completed and who didn't. And one of the strategies that they experimented with was saying, just start whatever it is you want to do, set a timer for 10 minutes, and then you're allowed to stop. Now, you can keep going if you want to, but you are absolutely allowed to stop. And what they found was that if you want to learn Spanish, it's not actually learning the vocab that's the most difficult bit. It's getting off our fat backside off the sofa, opening up the vocab book, and doing. Once we've done that, actually, we're onto it. Ditto with learning an instrument. It's going over and getting the violin or whatever it is and starting. It's called activation energy. It's the energy to change from one thing to another. So giving ourselves permission and just saying, I'm only going to do this for 10 minutes, breaks that activation energy, and it tricks our brains going, oh, it's really no big deal. So the 10-minute rule, and I've got clients at the moment who are literally just putting their shoes on and saying, well, I'm going to just go for you know, a 5-minute walk, and then surprise, when they're out there, then actually it can, you know, transition into something much bigger. The next one is around environment. Now the picture there, my dad used to run a paper mill, and I used to love it as a kid. You'd go around and like all the machines were in the right place to do the right thing, and all the tools were on their right hook, so that, you know, anyone could go and they'd know that the hammer would be there and that this would be there, and, you know, between the different shifts, everything was where it should be. So this is around designing your environment so that it's gearing up, you know, like in the same way that was just totally geared towards efficient production of paper. So for example, right now I'm here in my little attic room. I have got my bottle of water here. I haven't got any snacks around, and surprise, I'm not eating nearly as much rubbish as I normally would on a day, you know, in the office or when I'm working from home, because my environment is designed to keep hydrated and to do some work. End of. Or it could be designing the environment in terms of your diary. So, you know, does the calendar invite a pop-up to say, you know, the time scheduled now is to, you know, reach out to some colleagues or reach out to some friends? Or with the kids, you know, we're using their break times as our break times to make sure, right, let's, you know, go out there, go around the block, do what it is, you know, schedule in the family row for a specific time so that we know when it happens. So designing your environment. And the last one, which I think is one of the most powerful, is around having allies. And we've got to be careful here, because often our friends are the ones who are nice to us but stitch us up. They'll be the ones going, oh, don't worry, You look great. Don't worry that you've had 12 bottles of wine last night. It's understandable. And what I'm talking about here is allies who go, Harriet, you muppet, you said you were going to go for a walk this week and you haven't. Well, we're going to go for a walk together on Saturday. Or, Harriet, you said you were going to write a chapter of your new book this week. How's it going? So it's that kind of friendly, high challenge, high support, if that makes sense. And I was listening to Joe Wicks on Desert Island Discs this week, and he was talking about how his dad, was an addict, but Narcotics Anonymous has been key for him because it's that community of support to make sure that he keeps on the habit, the good habits, rather than falling into the bad habits. So it was a question that came in before this webinar around, are we really going to change, or are we going to slide back to our old ways? Which things, really resonates. And for me, it's around how much are we going to set this up so that we keep the stuff that's working and we jettison the stuff that isn't. How can you design your diary, design your environment, get your accomplices, your allies, to make sure that you stay as you're. Now, you might be looking at me and going, Harry, that would require getting a new family, all right? Because we're all biscuit lovers. Fine, find yourself a coach, a mate, a support group, a book group, whatever it is that can hold you to account out with that. Right, so just to summarize, we'll open it up for questions in a minute. Oh, beautiful timing. So in terms of what we've covered, you go on to the next slide. So that corona coaster of uncertainty, so that was the treasure map. And that was looking at X marks the spot in terms of what is my destination, or even better, what's my compass bearing around what's important to me. Everything else is irrelevant. The other territory is irrelevant. We also talked about those territories not being permanent. If you're, you might temporarily be crossing the mountains of anger, but get Spanish. This is temporary, it's not permanent. And also that the anger was just Trevor sending you a message. He's just trying to get your attention, going ding-a-ling-a-ling, we're on a mountain. I think you should be doing this and that. It's like, thanks, Trevor, mate. Really good. Thank you. I've heard you. I've acknowledged you. Bouncebackability, we talked about packing the rucksack. So planning, but I'm painfully aware that right now that can get a little bit overwhelming. So 5 minutes planning, or having a kind of review and a whatever on a weekly basis, fine. But then when the setback hits, it's those 4 levels. Can I find the opportunity is now here? But if not, can I at least contain it? Can I mitigate it? Can I neutralize it? Can I distract myself, or can I leverage it and find the lemonade? Beliefs, again, huge topic, but building that evidence wall to remind ourselves, I can handle it. I can handle it. I've got way more resources than I think I do. Motivation, again, loads of techniques, but the 3 that I love in particular is the 10-minute rule. Keep it really simple. Designing your environment so it's impossible not to, and building the allies, the support network that's going to encourage you. And then just to kind of finish this off, so on the next slide, some kind of parting thoughts is, when I was at Edinburgh last year, it was my 3rd time at the Fringe, and the first time you're like Dick Whittington, you go up there and go, I'm going to be discovered and I'll have my own Graham Norton show within 5 minutes. And then the 2nd year, you're a bit more kind of grumpy. And then the 3rd year, you kind of, I brought to it, this was my list for the 3rd year of like, this is what, I'm going to get out of Edinburgh, because first of all, I'm going to review. I am going to make sure that I review what's been working, whether that's in terms of driving ticket sales or getting laughs or keeping sane in a really challenging environment, and what's my plan for the next week. There was a really big piece about resetting when you've come off stage, and right now it feels very similar, that there are days when it feels like you've come off stage, that the adrenaline is, or the setback, or you've died on your backside, that's hard. So that resetting, just going for a walk around the block, having a bath, something to just reset, draw a line under it. Recharging mentally. So for me, that was around having my evidence wall, my belief wall, and congratulating myself. I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm showing up. Refueling, and that's the physical, making sure that I was eating the right stuff, staying hydrated, low sugar release foods, I wasn't going like that. And then reconnecting with what I call nutritious people. Okay, so that would be my kind of summary of all the stuff that we've talked about. So I'm going to shut up now. Well, I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to open it up to questions. There's a slide on the next slide. It's got some resources that in terms of further reading. So yeah, the first one is I've put together some free videos and PDFs and so on about dealing with fear and facing uncertainty and so on that you can access for free there. That's the book that I was referring to that Ben and I wrote. Some amazing books, a beautiful constraint. It's got a business focused book, but it talks about that opportunity is nowhere to now here. It's a book all about that. Great book. Atomized Habits, cracking book around how can you make habits that make your life better. Rest, that's talking about the value of rest, relaxation, and loads of scientific research around how we might think we're being lazy, but it's actually massively important to rest, recuperate, recharge, take an afternoon nap. And then meditation app, what a wonderful name, 10% Happier Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. It's the only meditation that I've ever stuck to. I love it. I'm a big fan of that. And if there's any questions I don't get to answer in the next 10 minutes, then do get in touch. So I will shut up. Questions, please. Susie, tell me what we've got.
Oh, Harriet, that was fantastic. We've had so many positive comments coming in saying how everyone's feeling much more motivated. So that's good. And someone said that, yeah, that Joe Wicks interview is an absolute must for everybody. That's someone's top tip for today. Yeah, and then someone else said redesigning the environment is something I've been investing in since lockdown. Working from home so much makes you realise, doesn't it, how much your environment can affect your productivity and well-being.
Yeah, and I think the routine as well, that there's the physical environment, and then there's the environment of, like, say, I used to commute for quite a long journey. So like walk to the station, hour and a half on the train, and it's really made me think, what was I doing? How was I using that time? And how am I using that time now? And that time as an environment, if that makes sense. And also culturally, who do you get to hang around with? So I really miss the ticket guy at the train station. He was just a joyous man. How am I going to get that kind of just casual chat, banter hit now? As well as I'm reconnecting with old friends that I haven't connected with for a while. It's like, it's so easy to let ourselves drift, isn't it? And kind of just oh, I'm in this environment, and be swept along rather than designing our environment. So yeah, that really resonates.
Great. So as remote working becomes more of the norm, what role should employers play in helping people to get into those good habits, or is it all up to the individual?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's a piece about education in that there seems to be a wide disparity of understanding about what useful habits are. I'm still really intrigued by at the moment there's an awful lot of people working flat out. I wake up, I check my emails, I'm still checking them when I go to bed. So I think there's an education piece. I think there's a cultural piece around making very clear what's acceptable and unacceptable. So whether it's saying, right, you can send emails whenever you like, but there is no expectation for them to be answered except between the hours of X and Y. It's like, for me, for example, when the kids were small, it was great to email when they'd gone to bed, but now my pattern's completely shifted. I also think there's something very much about, as an employer, connecting with the individuals, and everyone's different. So right now there will be some of your employees who are craving that motivation, that warm hug of just picking up the phone and chatting. And some people are feeling very, very lost right now, that they are on their own. I've got a few clients who are in house shares with people that they don't really know, and it's brutal for them. On the other hand, you can have some employers who are like, just get out of my face and let me get on with it. I am fine. So I think it's for your direct team, making sure that you are very clear on those individual needs, and that that managers are equipped to really listen and connect with the individuals as individuals. So there you go. There's some kind of cultural things, and then there's that individual relationship, I would reckon.
Thank you. Here's one which I think will probably resonate with you and me. How do I encourage my 12-year-old to get out of the house and play sport, which he loves, when he'd rather stay at home and game with his mates? He says he's afraid of getting COVID, but I'm not sure how true that is, and whether he just wants to game.
It's really, that so resonates, because I've got 2 boys and they are of gaming age, and half of me goes, Fortnite isn't Fortnite, it's actually he's chatting with his mates, and you know, that for him is a really, really important social connection. And it's also desperately annoying when you know they're going to enjoy. I remember my mum going, "You'll enjoy it when you get there," around the brownies. Like, oh, I can't be bothered to go to brownies. So I'm wondering about whether it's, so this is coming at it from as a fellow mum. I'm not some guru on a mountaintop going, "Here's what you should do" on this one. I think, is there a piece where they can meet their mates outside? We've been really lucky that, you know, we've got this socially distanced football locally that's just started up, and that's, you know, so what's a fun way for them that they can connect and do that? Is there something about mitigating that fear, like what actually is worrying him about you know, COVID, and is there a bit that you can unpick there? And also I wonder what family habits we can get into. So, you know, my God, they moan, but we have compulsory family exercise during the day, and the activation energy in the round to get there is hard. But 9 times out of 10, they'll be, "Oh, it's quite fun" when they've done it. So yeah, when you know the answer, tell me, I think is the short answer to that one. Yeah, good luck.
And me. Oh, sorry, can you recommend any good reading for those deep-seated beliefs? So I'm not enough, I can't cope, I'm not a nice person, I deserve bad stuff.
I'll have a think and I'll get back to you, because I mean, to be totally frank, that's exactly the book that I'm writing now, because I have because I think there's not enough around there on that. But let me have a noodle and I'll get back to you on that one. So I guess, what's the best way to do that, Susie?
Yeah, we can. That's fine. We can get that. I tell you what, whoever that is, if you just, in the question box, if you just put your email address to me, then I can get that to Harriet.
Right, that's confidential. Yeah, cool.
If you're okay with that. Oh yeah, someone's asking about the link. They want to pass it on because it's such a great webinar. Just to remind everyone, this will come to you as you experience it now, with Harriet's great slides and words of wisdom, tomorrow by email. Right. Do you have any tips to replace casual conversation, social interactions when everything is virtual? It's just harder, isn't it, with the small talk, I think?
It really is. And sometimes I think it's around the pre-framing. So I've been experimenting with, I'm having a live coaching chat every Friday at the moment, and I've deliberately set it up as like, this is really informal. You can come and go as you please. So there's something about framing it, you know, so if you're the one almost inviting people to go, "Look, can we just have a coffee hangout?" And you know, to pre-frame the Zoom as exactly that. Quizzes, I mean, not as in what's the capital of Venezuela, but as in I've seen some quite good traction around having questions that people, you know, like what's the most bonkers thing that's happened to you this week, you know, what wildlife can you see outside your window, that kind of thing, to try and engineer the conversation to be more light-hearted. And also playing around with different group sizes, because I think especially I'm coaching sort of introverts who are actually loving Zooms, that they can sit and they don't feel as picked on as they often do in a in a physically located you know, area. So that can be an unexpected boon.
Okay, great, thank you. Someone's finding exercise and healthy eating quite tough. Any tips?
For me personally, the environment bit's been really useful here, because we've got a you know, a village shop, a kind of Tesco's opposite us. So in normal world, especially the teenagers, they can just go and get crisps and biscuits whenever they like it. It's very hard for me to police that, but right now it feels more of a, and certainly during lockdown, obviously, you know, we couldn't really. So actually we've taken the opportunity that we've kind of detoxed the house, and not in an aggressive, like, we are never having sugar kind of way, but we've just kind of, we've ditched the crisps, we've ditched the they're not here. So then it becomes, it's the decision to go and get it rather than the decision not to. Does that make sense? So the default setting is there's nuts, there's apples, there's bananas, you know, there's water, there's non-alcoholic beer. That was the other thing for me, is non-alcoholic beer. I might go and get a beer, but I've got to go and get it. So I wonder for you how you can make it easier, that the right option is the easy one, and the wrong option is difficult. It's not forbidden, but it's just a bit more effort.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just writing down email addresses. Yes, so thank you very much. hold on. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. Oh, someone said, this is nice. I look at the mirror every evening and congratulate myself on what I've achieved. Laugh out loud. I must be slowly going mad, but it works for me.
I love it. That's brilliant. And I think we so rarely celebrate success. My mentor at the moment, actually, yes, I had a session with my mentor yesterday, and it was so joyous that he started off by going, well done on doing this, that, and the third, and what are you proud of this week? And I went, no. Anyway, what I'd like to work on, I went, no, you know, and he forced me to spend another 5-10 minutes on, you know, what's going well, what am I proud of, what am I grateful for, yada yada. And the other thing that he advised me on was around, you know, we are worthy, full stop. You know, almost like regardless of what we've achieved, what we look like, what we've done, what we've not done. So, you know, when I talked about the evidence wall, my only concern with that is that I'm peddling, you must have achieved loads, and then, well, that's not where I'm going with it. That's around my, you know, I'm resourceful, I can do stuff that, you know, I might have achieved absolutely jack all today, but I'm still, you know, worthy of love and respect just because we all are. I mean, does that make sense? You know what I mean? Rather than hooking it onto something external to myself. So yeah, I think we should just look in the mirror more and we'll go, I'm great, full stop.
Okay, what time is it? 12:02. I think that might be all we've got time for, unfortunately, everybody. But thank you so much for all your contributions and all your questions and all your really kind comments. We're really, really, really grateful. Just to say that if you want to look at the This Can Happen events website, thiscanhappenevents.com, on the resources page, you'll see all the webinars that are being given before, during this period, and details of our next one coming up on the 1st of July with Judith, who's a brilliant speaker on surviving the summer holidays. There you go. And just to reiterate again, you will receive this webinar tomorrow via email, as you've experienced it today. So you will have all the resources and everything with you tomorrow. And then in a second, a brief evaluation form will pop up. It's really helpful to us if you wouldn't mind just filling it in with any feedback that you might have. And then I think that's all that left me to do, is to thank you all and Harriet for a brilliant session. Enjoy the rest of your pretty rubbishly rainy day. Harriet, did you want to say anything?
No, just thanks for playing full on, everyone, and best of luck and keep in touch. And yeah, no, take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm now going to end the webinar.